Hey guys, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thank you for joining me. Super stoked to be back with another Astro Musings video. Hopefully you guys are liking the new content. I'm using kind of Tuesdays more as just talking to you about my process of using astrology, how it applies in my everyday world, and just kind of how I go about feeling inspired and really kind of working with the astrological forces of the right now. I'm super stoked for this video because I have been feeling very inspired as a result of some of the stuff that has come up for me, like even the last 48 hours. Mercury is stationing in the sign of Capricorn, so it's now direct, it's super powerful. Mercury is conjunct Pluto, so some very deep, profound thoughts, conversations, and intensity revolving around Pluto topics. What we are uncovering, kind of digging deep and finding something at the core that's very important. Today, I'm actually here to talk to you more about an asteroid goddess. I want to talk to you guys all about the goddess known as Vesta. And I'll explain where the inspiration came from in a second, but kind of an important topic. I feel like this kind of came through channeled, which was very interesting. And I just kept seeing all these synchronicities pretty much yesterday and today and all morning. And I was like, I gotta do some investigation. What's going on here? Like, why are these energies coming up so strong? And my conclusion was the Mars-Venus conjunction that's getting ready to happen in Capricorn on top of Vesta. So I actually want to start today with a hymn. I want to read you guys an old hymn that's an Orphic hymn that was actually to Hestia, which is the Roman version of Vesta. And then I want to talk to you about Vesta and why this energy is so important right now. So let me start with this. I'm going to replace Hestia's name with Vesta just for the purpose of this this video, so we know exactly who we're singing the praises for. To Vesta, fumigation and aromatics, daughter of Saturn, venerable dame, whose dwellest amidst great fire, eternal flame. In sacred rites, these ministers are thine, mystics, much blessed, holy, and divine. In thee, the gods have fixed their dwelling place, strong, stable basis of the mortal race, eternal, much formed, ever florid queen, laughing and blessed, of lovely mien. Accept these rites, accord just desire, and gentle health, and needful good inspire. There's so many. Like I love poetry and I love astrology, so something that I've been working on for a while is like I have like a whole poetry book that I actually wrote to the planets. We'll see if that ever gets published if I eventually put it out there. But I felt super inspired, and it makes sense with some of my transits that are going on right now. I actually have Vesta in Capricorn, so I'm getting ready to have my Vesta return here pretty soon. And I have Vesta kind of transiting on my natal Venus and my Saturn and my Neptune. And I had all these dreams about baking bread. We were baking bread, pies, all kinds of foods and candles. And I've just noticed that I've been super fixated and very like obsessed with reorganizing some of the altars in my home. And something that I have in my living room above my fireplace is I have like not like an altar, but you know, you decorate the fireplace, right? Even when it's not the holidays. And so I've been, you know, putting things there. I have crystals and little glassed fixtures and just like decorating and bringing in newer kind of floral decorations, and have just been really fixated on I think savoring the last of where I am living when it comes to winter and having lots of fires in the fireplace. Anyway, super Vesta things. So let's talk a little bit about Vesta and what Vesta represents specifically. So Vesta in astrology goes back to the connection to the signs of Scorpio and Virgo. Vesta being associated with the Vestal Virgins, basically in spirituality in ancient Rome, they would always celebrate the new year actually at the beginning of March. So February was almost like our December, right? It's wrapping things up. It was dedicated to like New Year preparations and rituals and purification and prayer and cleansing, all relating to fire. Now, this month of February was connected to the goddess Vesta of the hearth and home, and she is a symbol of the sacred flame, basically. So these Vestal virgins were basically considered in ancient times to be associated with keeping the sacred fires burning in Rome and keeping them protected. So these groups of women would live and make sure that the fire was continuing to go, honoring Vesta through their chastity. They were not supposed to be having sex during this 30-year term. And if they were punished pretty badly. In fact, if I remember correctly, I think they were burned outside of the city gates alive. Anyway. But it was very sacred. It was a sacred duty to be one of these Vestal virgins to ensure that Rome was protected. They're working with that goddess and that deity, and they're making sure that the fire was staying strong. It was considered a rare social status to make the choice to do this, because essentially that's 30 years of remaining a virgin, not marrying, not belonging to a man, and choosing not to get married. Anyway, so Vesta reminds us of our wholeness, right? Our holiness when it comes to our own personal life force energy, especially when it comes to our choice in romantic partners. In traditional terms, to be a virgin meant to only give to yourself or to belong only to yourself. So it referred to like an unmarried woman and not really like the sexual connotation that we use today. So it's not like, oh, you haven't had sex. It's just more she's not married. She's unmarried. She's focusing more on, self-preservation is kind of what I think of with Vesta. But Vesta also has a connection that translates very specifically to expression of sexual energy and sacred sex and how we come into our own spiritual relationship with sex. And it's about devotion to something, to keeping the flame, keeping that spark, keeping warm, taking care of something and keeping something very sacred. So when we're connecting with Vesta, it's energy that's connected to rituals revolving around life, right? Fire brings warmth, it brings life. So personal ceremonies and rituals revolving around magical intent for life and abundance and health and family. But she, specifically in astrology, can deal a lot with where we channel all of that focus and what we're giving energy to or what we're protecting. In astrology also, like a blocked Vesta can materialize as unrealized sexual potential, sometimes not dealing well with our sexual passions or our desires. It's a very interesting, it's a very, very interesting asteroid. So specifically right now, I'm looking at the chart where Vesta is actually at 15 degrees of Capricorn, and we're going to see in the days ahead that Mars and Venus are going to be kind of getting ready to link up and get particularly close to Vesta throughout this next week or so. It looks like that Mars and Venus don't actually really catch up until closer to about the end of February. And when Mars and Venus hit 23 degrees on February 25th, that's when they're going to conjunct. Ironically, it's also when the moon goes into Capricorn. So how does this materialize for us right now? It may feel like this process of whatever we're working hard on, whatever we are focusing on nurturing and giving energy and feeling inspired by, this depends on where Capricorn is in your chart. Now, Vesta specifically in the sign of Capricorn has us focusing on organization, control. It's really great for projects, anything that requires a lot of persistence and focus and dedication. Like we think of the sign of Capricorn ruled by Saturn as focusing on what we're giving our time and our energy to. When we see Vesta that's in aspect to Mars or Venus, we see some really interesting energy. So specifically, the Venus conjunction with Vesta has us really thinking about art therapy or art as a creative outlet, or just any creative outlets in general. This is coming up because they need a release or a recharge, or I say they, meaning us, or we need to get better in touch with our mental health through art or beauty. Now, pleasure and happiness can come easily from this conjunction, and it makes it very possible for us to feel like we're in a better mental or emotional state of mind. So when we see this conjunction, we want to focus on letting pleasure and comfort being our guiding light, exploring sensuality through practices such as Tantra, Kundalini, yoga, sacred sex, any of the sacred aspects of Vesta that's more so down to earth and kind of like an earthier quality of connecting, very practical, very traditional when it's in Capricorn. Now, when we see Vesta in aspect to Mars, it shows like increased ability to focus on the energy and the work at hand. So it's interesting that we have the feminine kind of, does it feel good? Do we enjoy this? The masculine energy of Mars, that's like, okay, I'm going to come in and, really give energy to whatever you're focusing on. Energy and motivation will move more freely because of motivation with Mars. And there's going to be more ambition. We're going to notice that there's more self-fulfillment that can kind of come about, and we might be feeling less alienated than we have been more so recently. Now, I talked in previous videos about Mars and Venus coming into conjunction and how that's like a very passionate, very sensual energy. But I think with Vesta coming into the mix, it's like, okay, well, what's important? What do we need to nurture? What do we dedicate and give our time to? It's almost like prayer, right? Vesta is almost like prayer. Some things that Vesta is associated with are themes like home, hearth, love, fertility, peace. Now, her symbols would be fire, bread, baking, baked goods, but one thing I didn't know was veils, and she does have an association with mysticism, specifically anything relating to divination and being able to read flames, which is kind of cool. And so I started like reading and digging more into this, and I was like, something's going on here. Well, I've been focusing on cooking a lot. I have Ceres on my natal midheaven, and it opposes actually my Uranus and my Venus. So sometimes I'll be up at all hours of the night, or want to wake up first thing in the morning, and I want to like cook for everybody and bake a bunch of bread and make a bunch of food. Just with this Vesta movement that's been going through my fourth house, I like reorganized my kitchen. I gave a lot of time to it, and then recently got more into learning about my human design and realized that I'm a projector. And then one of my comfort zones apparently is the kitchen, or places where people come together. And so I've been like spending a lot of time in the kitchen, thinking a lot more about how things are organized, and also just focusing more on cooking and how I'm like learning more about certain techniques, thanks Vesta, in conjunction to my Venus. But then it had me going a little bit deeper with this conjunction that's been happening. Actually, transit Pluto and Mercury have been on my natal Vesta, so it's been almost like channeling and connections to that. For me, more it's been in my fourth house, my heritage and where I come from. And I have like this really, really kind of tight spiritual connection with a grandmother who I actually never met, who was my father's grandmother. So it's actually my paternal great grandmother, I guess if you put it that way, who was Romanian and married somebody who was German. They didn't speak the same language, ended up immigrating here to the States, and thereabout came my grandparents actually, and then thereafter my dad. Anyway, my grandmother was a cook, and she was also majorly into astrology. It wasn't until later down the line that we found out she was like majorly into like magic and mysticism, and she had volumes of star books and all kinds of astrology books from, I think it was either the late 1800s or the early 1900s, and she was basically an astrologer or some of the family members say she's a witch because she's threatened to put hexes on family members. Anyway, this Vesta transit for me, both Pluto and Mercury on my natal Vesta, and also transit Vesta on my Venus, has just brought up all this weird ancestral stuff. That's like, oh, gotta organize the fireplace, gotta get the altar stuff cleaned up, gotta bake the bread, give the offerings, get the candles going. I've had candles burning all the time. My husband probably thinks I'm fucking insane because I'm like, you can't put the candle out, right? I've always been adamant about, in traditional magic, you know, you don't blow it out. So you either have your daily offering candles, which I always have going, or I have one that I'll set and dress and then let it burn until it's out. Very Vesta. So the more that I started kind of digging into this energy, I was like, okay, but how is this going to affect everybody around the world? And why is this coming up right now? Well, it's February, you know, traditional Roman energy viewed March 1st as the new year. And something that I've been watching is a couple of transits. Number one, obviously, when the conjunction happens on the 25th, but I want to scale this back a little bit, and I actually want to look at the 13th. Because the 13th of February was seen as one of the traditional, feast days for Vesta. Now, Mars and Venus are going to be conjunct Vesta within about 2 degrees, so we're definitely going to feel that. But on this day, we're going to see the moon in Cancer in opposition. And so something that I kind of meditated on is that I think what's going to happen right around the 13th and then leading up until the end of the month is this reflection that we're going to have on what are we paying attention to, what are we building, what are we keeping warm, what are we focusing on working or kind of nurturing, and is it really nurturing us, right? The moon opposed Pluto in all of these placements. Is it really nurturing, or are we doing the work and we're just pushing through the emotions? Followed by what will then be March 1st, which in theory is kind of this newer energy, right? And in theory, this is like we've done all the cleansing and the clearing and the purification rites of our homes or our kitchens. Some would call it spring cleaning. And then we get into what will be March 1st, where we have the Venus, Mars, Pluto, Vesta conjunction happening. It's about what we are protecting, right? It's about what we are working hard to preserve. Notice that all of these planets are going to be in a trine also to the North Node. So there's something going on here. The more that I did research and I was digging into this, Vesta was a household deity. You know, if you guys can look really closely, actually, if you go and you watch the scene in Gladiator where he's down on his knees and he's got like the little wax figures of his late son and his wife. There's like a little house and he's got like a candle and things burning. There is a little image of like a little statue of a deity, and it's Vesta. Vesta was seen as basically one of the traditional kind of home goddesses and deities. And she focused very much on the preservation of the home and making sure that everything was safe and secure, that the home was warm, that it was abundant, that you had bread in your belly, and security in general. So she was one of the more popular home goddesses. They saw her also as somebody who came in and protected the family. So to get a little bit more insight and I guess inspiration, I pulled one of my favorite books. It's funny, I saw somebody reading this the other day. I can't remember where I was, but I was out. I think I was like waiting at the DMV or something, and I saw somebody reading this, and I was like, good job. Asteroid Goddesses, the Mythology, Psychology, Astrology of Reemerging Feminine, Demetra George and Douglas Bloch. Probably botched that. And I was going through this because I was like, okay, I need to get more information about this. But she's associated with the eternal flame, torch, altar fire, donkey, Scorpio, and also Virgo. Principal focus is commitment. Interesting. So a couple things that I wanted to read you guys really quick. Just some associations that she has other than the Vestal Virgins would be, okay, here we go. The true meaning of Vesta. Based upon the mythology, we can see the deeper significance of Vesta is revealed through her central symbol, the hearth. The place in the center where the fire is maintained. This fire, essential to survival of ancient cultures, served as a gathering point for community. The Latin word for hearth is focus. Because fires were so necessary yet difficult to maintain, they and their keepers were considered important. Conceived of Vesta not by the living flame. Vesta is the same as the earth, under both them and perpetual fire. The eternal fire also sparked of fertility. Hence behind the veil of chastity and barrenness, the inner nature of Vesta is the sexuality and fertilizing power of the goddess. Hence, Vesta's two central themes were fire and sexual symbology. Interesting. Connections to Vesta, in sexuality being, I think, the tie that she has to Scorpio and that really kind of Plutonian energy. I think transforming the way that we view sex, and that sex is not a sin, that is meant to be a sacred right, moving through issues of sex and fear and sexual repression. And focus on, I would say virginity, but more in a sense of purity in sexual nature and engaging only when it is sacred, otherwise kind of keeping that internal flame burning, staying focused, staying committed. I almost see like Vesta as like a nun of sorts, it's just what she really focuses on taking care of, and all of her energy kind of goes towards that rather than focusing on things that can kind of distract. In occult teachings, Vesta is the elder keeper of tradition, preserves and hands down ancient ceremonies and rituals that provide us with magical energy and entrance into the world. Very interesting. Commitment. Here we go. So connections would be things like Bhakti Yoga. That's more like devotional, obviously. Hatha Yoga is physical. And yeah, just, I don't know, something about this makes me feel like with the transits that are going on currently, the conjunctions to Vesta are really having us think about the work that we're doing and if we enjoy it. Do we enjoy the work that we're doing? Are we just slaving away, maintaining a flame that's not bringing us passion, that's not fueling our desires? Are we working hard at our connection in relationships and sacredness? And are we treating sex as something that is a sacred energy exchange rather than something that is just merely a physical act and we just kind of go about it? Keep in mind, in the midst of all of this, these transits are also in a trine to Uranus and Taurus, which is ruled by Venus. I think that even though Vesta has a very strong association with Scorpio and Virgo, I can't help but feel like the trine of Vesta throughout this transit is also going to materialize as us learning about the effects of sexual energy exchange and how it affects our bodies. I think that we are going to start noticing people making huge strides and making changes in the kind of work that they're doing. And I'm seeing it a lot in my clientele. I'm seeing a lot of people who are focusing a lot on building side businesses and side hustles, and they're very kind of Vesta things where it's like, they're burning the candle at both ends. They're getting up and they're working a full-time job on top of launching something. They are focusing a lot on passion projects and things that they love doing. I'm seeing a lot of people who are wanting to get very involved in food, whether that's food preparation or anything involving starting new businesses or consulting revolving around food. I think that with the trines to what ultimately will be the North Node is also getting us thinking about what the Capricorn energy is going to have a say in when it comes to our food and our resources, you know? Is there going to be a lot of like value in food, whether this is like agriculture or people who can produce food, people who can sell food or anything like that? Because Vesta has that very strong connection to home businesses, homegrown food, homemade meals, things that maybe can be delivered to homes or given to homes or things like that. So in the sense of like business being Capricorn and Vesta being what we're working on, is there going to be a shift happening revolving around people focusing more on working from home? Are people getting really passionate about some of their hobbies or things that they really enjoy doing? I'm seeing a lot of husband and wife teams. I think a lot of this is because the Mars and Venus conjunctions are happening right now. And in a way, Mars is going to be following up with Venus and asking Venus what she enjoys, what she's passionate about, what she loves doing. And all of this is building into a trine to the North Node. So where can divine masculine energy kind of hold space for helping support the feminine and being able to possibly help work on projects or home businesses and things that can be very, very successful in the spring, once this energy kind of starts to stabilize and we get into like March, April, May, right? So I'm really excited to see how this is manifesting for you guys. I really encourage you to take a look at where Capricorn is in your chart. I know I keep saying that, but this is something that I feel like I overlooked a little bit of. And even for somebody like me who's aware of these transiting planets, I have found that the things that I have been most passionate about outside of work, you know, like I'm like the crazy person, like I said, who will like put, 2 hours or 3 hours into making a meal and making sure that it's cooked appropriately and that all the right seasonings are there, that it's seared just the right way, or just really focusing. I've been really fixated on stuff that's like charred, right? Very Mars. And getting that kind of charred taste without really actually having it burned. Or actually a new subscription service that I'm taking that's learning all about different kind of methods to cooking things really well from home. And it's also kind of spurred this whole thing for me that was going down and looking more at my roots and my family heritage, my legacy, and the fact that I come from a long line of women that used to cook for families and used to take care of families and used to feed families. So now it's manifested to me probably feeding people who come to my house a little too much. Ask anybody who's come here for Thanksgiving, or my co-host, I'm always feeding him if you've seen my podcast. But it's going deeper beyond just the physical act of cooking. It's more about honoring that legacy and that fire that burns inside of me, because it's just something that I love to do. That's obviously waking up during this time and getting me to think more about other ways that I can invite the goddess into my home. And I'm really excited to see how it manifests. Actually, as I'm filming this, I have time in between sessions, and my next stop is to actually head over to the grocery store and go and get some yeast and some other things, because I'm preparing for the festival day to leave offerings and probably put some bread out and some things in the fireplace, and asking Vesta to come and be here to purify and clear the home and get everything ready for this next month, and help not only bring I think stability and happiness and health within the home and the people who live here, but also continuing to light that fire and really help me follow my passions in regards to some of the things that I'm really passionate about right now, which ironically is cooking, baking, decorating my, like I said, my fireplace, and also restarting my candle company. So it's literally all these Vesta things. Pay attention to the transits, like I said, that are happening on the 13th, because you may feel like it's missing something, like there's a missing ingredient. And the missing ingredient, I think, is the emotional connection with the moon going into Cancer, and where we're realizing that maybe where we thought working hard isn't necessarily the magic solution anymore. We have to do the emotional work revolving around doing work that we're truly emotionally drawn to. And hoping that when we align with our passions and things that feel right, and if there's that that project you keep going back to, or if there's that hobby that you just can't stop. And for some of you guys, it's astrology, so keep on keeping on. For other people, it's new things that you're learning about. And I would encourage you to work with the energies this month and find other people who are just as equally excited and I think motivated to work together or work on things to help you fan the flames of that sacred desire. So hopefully that was a little bit of weekday astro musing inspiration for you guys. Let me know, where is Vesta transiting currently in your chart of Capricorn? Is it touching on any personal planets? If you are a Capricorn sun, moon, or rising, as well as if you have, like, let's say your Venus there or your natal Vesta there, you're going to be feeling this especially strong because there's something magical that is really heating up with these aspects. I'll leave it at that, and I will see all of you guys very soon. Got a new video coming out probably on Thursday. It's going to be my part 2 of the Pluto return, so stay tuned for that because I want to get that out before shift hits the fan. If you want to book a reading with me, check out my links below. Check out my social media. Got some openings probably in about a month's time. I practice Western astrology with an evolutionary twist, and my sessions are a combination of tarot and also what I see clairvoyantly. Otherwise, I will see all of you guys very soon. Enjoy the rest of your week. Take care.